Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the No DQ live recap of AEW Dynamite as well as WWE NXT for May the 27th, 2020. And we have a lot to discuss. We had two eventful shows this week. So real quick, shout out to everybody in the chat room watching live. Shout out to everybody watching on demand. Shout out to Christopher Mace, who unfortunately lost his home in a fire on Memorial Day. We set up a GoFundMe for him, and I'm very happy to say that they already reached their goal with that GoFundMe. So thank you to everyone that donated and shared the link, and hope you're doing okay, Chris. Our thoughts are with you. Thank you for tuning in tonight. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started with our recap. We'll start with AEW. We had a recap of the Double or Nothing pay-per-view. Chris Jericho was outside the arena with the Inner Circle. They were hyping up this pep rally for the main event segment of the show. And Jericho was talking about recouping their Stadium Stampede winner t-shirts. This was a joke on the Super Bowl when the losing team t-shirts, the Super Bowl champions t-shirts from the losing team get sent to a third world country. That was the joke here. And it was revealed that they actually have an entire truckload of these Inner Circle Stadium Stampede winner t-shirts. Nice little fun segment to kick off the show. We had an updated intro. It's the same AEW Dynamite intro, but with new clips, including some footage from the Double or Nothing pay-per-view. Psycho Jet Black with first super chat of the evening, $2, says, "You remember the Simpsons episode about the Super Bowl?" That one I do not remember. I remember a lot of 90s Simpsons episodes, but I do not recall that one. So that must have been a later episode. And by the way, guys, if you're going to leave super chats, I do have one request that you try and stick to the topic if at all possible. We had our first match of the evening, which was Matt Hardy and the Young Bucks teaming up against Joey Janela and the Private Party. Before the match, we had a backstage interview segment with the Elite and Matt Hardy. Adam Page was there, but he quickly went off to his hotel room to get a drink, and Kenny Omega left with him. The Bucks wanted a different version of Matt Hardy, not broken Matt Hardy. So Matt went off camera, came back as Hardy Boys Matt Hardy, but Matt and Nick were thinking maybe something a little bit older. So Matt left and came back again as his original Matt Hardy persona, which looks very similar to how the Young Bucks look. And they were happy with this. They were happy with the early Spot Monkey version of Matt Hardy. Matt came out in his classic gear, wearing an All Delete Wrestling t-shirt. And during this match, there was a moment where Janela got thrown over the barricade and Nick went for a super kick but missed and hit Blade from the Blade and Butcher tag team, and a fight broke out between Butcher, Blade, and the Bucks. Things were cooled off, and we got back to the match, which was won by the babyfaces, Matt Hardy, along with the Young Bucks, picking up the victory. But after the match, they got jumped again by Butcher and Blade, and that's when FTR arrived. FTR, of course, formerly the Revival in WWE, officially making their AEW debut. They came out and the fans in attendance did the holy shit chant, and they were going nuts for this. FTR got in the ring, and by the way, the name FTR, it could stand for a lot of things, but the official name, according to AEW, is F the Rest. F-U-C-K, of course. They came in the ring and acted like they were going to attack the Young Bucks. However, they went after Butcher and Blade instead. They hit a spike pile driver, and then there was a super kick party to Butcher and Blade, followed by the Shatter Machine to Butcher and Blade. And then there was this face-off between the two teams, the Young Bucks and FTR. Great debut. I loved it. Of course, the only way it could have been better was if there was a full-sized crowd in the building. Imagine the pop these guys would have gone. This would have been awesome, but unfortunately, you got to do what you got to do under the circumstances. You got to debut them when they're fresh off of their WWE run. I get it. Really well done. I enjoyed it. Nice start for FTR, and I like the team being called F the Rest. I like it. Good stuff here. The Cleaver Colin Andrew with a $2 super chat says, F the Rest, hashtag FTR. I loved the debut. We had Jon Moxley come out on commentary. He talked about his match with Brody Lee being his toughest fight in AEW to date. And there was a recap shown of Brian Cage making his AEW debut at Double or Nothing, winning the Battle Royal. Nick Glavin with a $2.79 super chat, thank you for that, says, solid debut for FTR and was happy to see them. We had Brian Cage come out with Taz in his corner, and he beat up this enhancement guy, Lee Johnson. He beat the hell out of this guy, suplexing him around the ring, throwing him around, hitting the screwdriver to pick up the victory. This reminded me a lot of like old school Scott Steiner when Steiner could still go, just beating the crap out of this guy, throwing him around, the screwdriver, all that stuff. And after the match, Taz cut a promo, said he respects Moxley for paying his dues. However, Taz wants Moxley to bring all that grit and all that heart to Fyter Fest. And then Taz finished up with the line, beat Brian Cage if he can, survive if he lets you. Tony H with a $2 super chat says, I think Brian Cage needs the title, looks dominant. I thought this was a great showing from Brian Cage. He looked like a beast. Like I said, old school Big Papa Pump. And this was a great squash match. This is how you do it. Just have the guy come out there and beat the holy piss out of somebody. So good stuff here to set up Fyter Fest. We do not know when this pay-per-view will be taking place. During the show, they hyped it up a little bit, and it was said that the match will take place sometime during the summer. No official date. Perhaps AEW wants to hold off as long as possible and maybe get a crowd for it. We'll have to wait and see. Hamp Connor with the $2 super chat. Thank you, Hamp. I appreciate it. He says, why are they doing this now? It's too soon. Yeah, you could argue that maybe they're rushing this with Brian Cage. You know, same thing with Brody Lee. Did it really need to happen this soon? No Brody Lee on this show. We'll see what happens with him, what's next for Brody Lee and the Dark Order. Although there was a little bit of something with the Dark Order, and I'll get to that here in a few minutes. We had a Britt Baker segment, The Rules of Being a Role Model. Britt Baker came out in a wheelchair. Tony Schiavone was doing the interview. He was trying to get going with this, but he was getting heckled, so Britt took over. She said, one of the rules is do not hurt the role model. I believe this was rule number 3. She said what happened to her last week was not an accident. It was a conspiracy. And she showed the footage from last week with everybody being involved with her getting hurt in that tag match. She talked about all 3 of the women involved in that match, said that Chris Statlander claiming to be an alien is a crock of shit. And she showed this chart with all the women, all the players in this conspiracy, said it was a web of evils, and Audrey Edwards, the referee, was right there in the center. And Britt brought up how Edwards has been in every match where Britt got hurt. Every time she got injured, Edwards was there. So she's the one that's the person behind all of it, pulling all the strings. Britt did say that she will return at the AEW All Out pay-per-view, which we do know is September 5th, Labor Day weekend, as scheduled. The question is, where will All Out take place? Will it be Chicago? Will that be too soon? That remains to be seen. Another good segment here from Britt Baker. I'm really getting into the role model gimmick with her. She's doing a great job, and I'm glad they're keeping her around, although I'm not sure if she'll be around for future shows, but hopefully she'll get to do promos while she's out of action. Chris Jericho was backstage with the Inner Circle talking about how they're hoping to get back on track. Orange Cassidy walked by them, and Jericho was not amused by this. We had Hikaru Shida, the new AEW Women's Champion, picking up a victory over Christia James. This was just basically a showcase for Shida as the champion. It was non-title. She picked up the win with the Falcon Arrow. Caleb Jacobs with a $2.50 super chat says, I like the WCW vibe with AEW. Yeah, some people like it, although I have seen some critics of it as well. People saying that AEW is just WCW 2.0 or TNA 2.0 as far as the look and the feel of the show goes. We had a recap of Cody Rhodes winning the TNT title at Double or Nothing, and Tony Schiavone brought out Cody for an interview. A great promo here from Cody. I really liked this promo. Cody talked about how when Tony Khan started AEW, Cody was not actually one of the first 3 people that Tony contacted. And he said that he is the first champion of America's greatest network. Cody brought up his mom, how she taught him about grit. What's with all the grit references on AEW all of a sudden? Are they getting the rub off of WWE with Edge? There you go. Everyone likes to say WWE's copying AEW. Well, is AEW copying WWE with the grit line? It seems weird that all of a sudden we got grit being used in AEW promos. Just saying. Interesting timing. Cody talked about how he will outwork everybody, and people tend to judge him, but they should judge him for what he does next. He is issuing an open challenge. WWE did it first. Ha ha ha. No, I mean, this is cool. I figured this would perhaps be a thing. It would make sense. TNT title. You defend it on TV every week on TNT. Why not? So it's fine. Yeah, WWE did it first, but I mean, open challenges have been done before for many years. I still think of John Cena and the Open Challenge, though, as like the most memorable Open Challenge series, perhaps, in wrestling history. Tony H with a $2 super chat says, Cody with a cutting edge promo. I like it. Nicely played there, Tony H. Cody continued to put over the fans, saying we're still in the pandemic era of wrestling, and AEW is without their greatest asset, which is the fans. But Cody said he knows they're out there, and he brought up the pay-per-view numbers for Double or Nothing, which apparently blew projections away. Apparently, Double or Nothing did better than people were expecting under the circumstances, and Cody said that he has an obligation to the fans to give them the absolute best, told them to stay tuned because this is where the fun begins. Like I said, really liked the promo overall from Cody. Keith Johnson with a $2 super chat says, Aaron, Britt got the conspiracy angle from Jericho. I was actually thinking of that, so thank you for bringing that up, Keith. I wonder if Jericho helped Britt out with that promo, because it definitely had the vibes of Chris Jericho in 1998 doing the whole conspiracy theory thing. You have to wonder if Jericho help put that promo together with Britt. Would be a good question to ask Jericho. See if he'll mention that. Nick Glavin with a $2.79 super chat. Thank you for that. Says, Shida and Britt are really helping the division. Well, I definitely feel like Britt Baker is really coming out of her shell. And back when AEW started, I did point her out as perhaps being the star of the division. And she was the first one that they were focusing on. But then she kind of got lost in the shuffle. Now she's starting, in my opinion, to really shine as the star of the division, even though Shida is the champion. And Shida's really solid. But I think Shida, she's got some charisma and personality. I just don't know if the Japanese style of wrestling is really going to translate to an American audience on a mainstream level. I think it definitely has a niche audience, and there are people that like the Japanese style being brought into America, obviously, but I think Britt Baker has more mainstream appeal as a star long term. So she's the one I'm really looking at. Hopefully she doesn't keep getting injured, because that could set her back a little bit and hurt her momentum. So hopefully she doesn't keep getting hurt, and we'll see what happens with her. Ken Terminated by Google with a $3 super chat, going not really off topic, I guess. Just mentioned that Kurt Angle's gold medal challenge was decent. Yeah, that was pretty good, but I still think my favorite one on a personal note is John Cena with the U.S. Open Challenge. I mean, you got KO's debut and Sami Zayn coming out there. Lots of memorable moments with that one. And Neville, that was another good one. We had SCU versus Kip Sabian and Jimmy Havoc in a tag team #1 contender match. Penelope Ford interfered, grabbing Kazarian's foot, and that led to Sabian and Havoc hitting the Michinoku Driver double team combo move and scoring the victory, pinning Scorpio Sky. And they will be getting a match next week against Hangman Page and Kenny Omega, and then the winning team from that match will go on to Fyter Fest sometime over the summer to face Best Friends for the tag team titles. Member Berries. I remember the Member Berries. Says, remember when Benoit stole the medals? No, I don't remember. WWE zapped my memory. I don't remember that. Ken Terminated by Google with a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Ken. Says, I had to cause you brought up Cena's Open Challenge. Hey, it's all good. That was definitely a memorable one, and thank you for bringing it up, Ken. We had MJF cut a promo about the Battle Royal, and he talked about him and Wardlow, his plan to have the two of them be the final two in the match, and Wardlow will know what to do, but Wardlow actually was like, what? He got in MJF's face, and there was a little bit of a tease of dissension between the two of them. We did have the Battle Royal, which was to determine Cody's first opponent for the TNT title on next week's show. Billy Gunn entered the match at the last minute, and then Orange Cassidy made a very late entry into the match. He was walking to the ring, and then he got jumped by Santana and Ortiz because of what he did earlier, walking in on the Inner Circle's promo. We had the Dark Order during the match trying to recruit Colt Cabana, and this was the only role that the Dark Order had on this show. And later in the match, Wardlow started doing his thing, cleaning house. Marco Stunt eliminated somebody. He eliminated Christopher Daniels. And then we had Luchasaurus and Wardlow going at it. Double teaming people was MJF and Wardlow. And they ended up eliminating Luchasaurus and Billy Gunn. But then Orange Cassidy got back into the match. And MJF got the Dynamite ring. He was going to use it on Orange Cassidy, but Orange moved out of the way, and Wardlow inadvertently got hit by MJF. And that's when Jungle Boy took advantage of the situation, dumped out MJF, and then Orange Cassidy and Jungle Boy worked together to eliminate Wardlow, and it was down to Jungle Boy and Cassidy. Two of them went back and forth. Pretty good sequence here between them. But in the end, Jungle Boy sent out Orange Cassidy to win the Battle Royal, and he'll face Cody on next week's show. I do not anticipate a title change, but I'm guessing, like the John Cena Open Challenge, when Sami Zayn came out there and fought Cena, he'll put in a good effort before ultimately being defeated by Cody. But good stuff here. Jungle Boy getting the spotlight. I like it. Good stuff. Nick Lavin with a $2.79 super chat says, I like Jungle Boy winning. Are you high on him, Aaron? Yeah, I like the guy. I like Jungle Boy. I think he can be a pretty good upper mid-carder. I don't know about main eventer, but I think there's definitely a spot for him in AEW, being one of those guys somewhere in the middle, like a Sami Zayn, I think he could definitely have a good run in AEW. Tom McCarthy with a $2 super chat says, my friends and I are going to help rebuild the No DQ YouTube. Well, thank you for that, Tom. I appreciate it. You can do that by spreading the word, and this goes to anybody out there. If you want to help out the channel, help the subscriber count, tell a friend, anybody you know who watches wrestling. I always say this. Word of mouth goes a long way. If you guys could just tell one person to come over here and check out the channel, if everybody did that, I'd double my audience right there. So, well, not double, because some of them would tune out right away, but maybe some of them would stay. Even if 10% of them stayed, that would still be a nice increase in viewership. So please spread the word. Just go out there and message one person, even message a stranger. Go on Twitter and at some random wrestling fan and say, hey, check out Aaron Rift on YouTube. Every little bit helps. Moving on here away from all that nonsense. We had the main event segment for Dynamite, which was the pep rally with the Inner Circle. We had the cheerleaders. Oh, and before this, they did show a recap of the Stadium Stampede match. And again, I recommend checking out the pay-per-view. Buy the replay. I thought it was great. I thought it was an awesome show. Well worth the $50. One of the cheerleaders for this pep rally was Vicky Guerrero. That's right, Vicky Guerrero showing up, doing the introduction for the Inner Circle. Jericho started handing out the Stadium Stampede Inner Circle Champions t-shirts to people in the crowd. Sami Zayn handed out some participation trophies to everybody. Jericho got the King of Dad Jokes. Jericho was like, what's the deal with this? And Sami was like, well, there's a pandemic. Hard to get trophies. We had Santana and Ortiz giving out some gifts. Jack Swagger read a poem, or Jake Hager, excuse me. And Sami asked Jericho what Jericho wants as a gift. Jericho said he wants Mike Tyson's head on a silver platter. He never forgot what Tyson did to him on a Monday night back in 2010. Of course, Monday Night Raw during the guest host era when Tyson punched out Jericho. Sami said he did not have Tyson's head on a silver platter, but he did have a cheese platter and some bubbly for Jericho. He lifted up this sheet, but there was nothing in the container, nothing in the bubbly bottle. What was the deal here? Well, we found out. Mike Tyson had a little bit of the bubbly, I guess, and had some of that cheese, because Tyson came out with his posse. He had like 10 guys out there, his entourage. He was wearing an AEW t-shirt. Tyson told Jericho deserved that punch from a decade ago. Jericho demanded an apology. He was going to give Tyson one chance to apologize for knocking him out. Tyson was not going to do it. He took his shirt off, Jericho shoved Tyson. Tyson shoved him back. And that's when all hell broke loose. The Entourage, the Inner Circle, a lot of the TNA, AEW, I said TNA there, wow. The AEW roster all came out there, and there was this huge pull-apart brawl. Basically, if you did not see this, I'll tell you what it was. It was a complete knockoff of the Steve Austin, Mike Tyson segment from 1998. Pretty much the same exact thing, right down to Excalibur calling it pandemonium, because that's what JR said back in the day. There's pandemonium in the WWF. Well, there was pandemonium here in AEW. Tyson tried to charge at Jericho. Jericho was screaming at Tyson. There was total chaos. And that was the final closing segment here for AEW. So, my thoughts on this. Before I get to my thoughts, Tony H with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Tony. He says, my guess is that All Out we will have Le Sex God, Jericho and Sammy versus Tyson and a mystery partner. So that way we can get a spot for Tyson and have an entertainment match. And also, Memba Berries with a $2 super chat says, Memba Tyson and Austin in 98? Memba DX? I do remember 1998, that's for sure. And I could see a tag match, Tony H. Maybe so Tyson doesn't have to do much of anything. He could tag in and punch out somebody, and somebody could get the rub off of Tyson just like Cody did. So my thoughts on this segment. All right, so I guess I'm going to be a little critical here, guys. I don't get the blatant knockoff of the 1998 segment. Why not just do something a little different? I don't know, anything, just not a total recreation of 98. Like, it was so blatantly obvious that it was a recreation of 1998. So that was a little strange to me. I'm not sure that worked for me, because it just looked like such a blatant knockoff. Are they going to try to say it was a parody or a tribute? I mean, I remember several months ago, like, Cody being in the limousine with Tony Schiavone, recreating the Flair for the Gold, Starrcade 93, and I guess they tried to say it was a tribute to that, when it kind of just looked like a ripoff. Now that, people don't remember that as much, but everybody remembers Tyson and Austin. That was one of the biggest angles in wrestling history, so it was weird to me. Like, is it a tribute or is it just a blatant knockoff? So I'm going to be a little bit critical of it. I don't know if that's the right move when it just comes off like such an obvious ripoff. But overall, I liked Dynamite. I was very entertained by it. I would have done the ending segment a bit differently. If you're going to do an angle with Tyson and Jericho, come up with something different. But overall, very fun show. Really enjoyed FTR's debut. And I still give it a thumbs up overall for AEW. Definitely intrigued to see what happens next. And ultimately, that's the goal with this. All right, let's move on now to NXT. As we get closer to the TakeOver In Your House pay-per-view, which is on June 7th. We went straight to our first match, no big video package or anything. We did have the Performance Center guys in the crowd for this show. And we had our triple threat match in the final Group A match of the Cruiserweight tournament. Drake Maverick, Jake Atlas, and Kushida. Back and forth with these three guys. I love the finish of this match. So Kushida put his armbar finisher on Atlas, trying to tap him out. But Drake Maverick somehow, out of the ashes, came in and put one arm over Atlas. And the referee counted 3 to count out Jake Atlas, giving Drake Maverick the victory. Drake Maverick winning this and going to the finals against Phantasma on next week's NXT. Phantasma shook Drake's hand after the match. Good sportsmanship. And Maverick was standing there by the championship. I wonder if Drake's going to win. Is it going to be the full story here? The guy that got fired somehow won his way back into the company. Or will Phantasma win and Drake is actually really fired? That would be very awkward if Drake Maverick is actually fired after all this. But we'll see. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? I would like to see Maverick win the title, though, personally. Like, Phantasma is a solid wrestler, but I have no emotional investment in him. I like Drake. I care about Drake, and I want to see him keep his job and win the title. Maybe he loses and still keeps his job. Guess we'll have to wait and see what happens. I am intrigued, so there's that. First time in a while for something with the cruiserweight division, but I'll tell you this, if Phantasma wins, I'll probably go back to not being interested, so that's that. We had Johnny Gargano come out with Candice LeRae. He was getting booed by the trainees at Full Sail University. He said that they should not be booing him because he's the reason they have a company to work for. And he talked about how he wants to give opportunities to people that actually deserve them. So therefore, he is introducing the very first Johnny Invitational. Candice handed him an envelope. We had a drum roll, and it was revealed that Adrian Adonis? No. Johnny thought it was Adrian Adonis, but it was actually Adrian Atlantis. This young up-and-comer came out to face Gargano, but pretty much a squash here. Quick win via the Gargano escape. And then on the big screen, we had Keith Lee and Mia Yim doing a parody of the Johnny Gargano dinner with Candice LeRae from the past few weeks. They were using flashlights for this promo, and Mia Yim was doing an impression of Candice, and Keith Lee was doing an impression of Johnny. And they had pizza arrive from Gargano's Pizza, because Gargano sounds, like a pizza chain. I thought this was a little cringy, to be honest with you guys. Again, if I criticize anything about NXT, I might get crucified, but this kind of felt like something that Vince would find funny, so maybe that's why I didn't like it. But yeah, didn't really work with me. But maybe some of you guys thought it was funny. I don't know. We had Kushida backstage with Drake Maverick, and Kushida gave Maverick some props, and Maverick said when he wins the title, he wants Kushida to get the first opportunity at the championship. We had a little pre-taped promo from Imperium, said they're going to set the rules, they're going to dictate the pace in NXT, yada, yada, yada. We had Shotzi Blackheart versus Raquel Gonzalez. And Dakota Kai was out there at ringside. And during the match, Kai hijacked Shotzi's tank and started messing around with it, started breaking it apart. And that's when Tegan Nox came out there, attacked Kai. And then Candice LeRae came out, confronted Nox, and while this was happening, the referee got distracted, and Kai interfered on Raquel Gonzalez's behalf. Raquel picked up the victory. This was fine. At least this wasn't the stupid babyface this time. The match ended as a result of Kai interfering when the referee was distracted instead of the babyface just getting distracted and getting pinned. So I did like this for that reason. We had Charlotte Flair and Chelsea Green versus Rhea Ripley and Io Shirai. Chelsea Green was the mystery partner for Charlotte. I'm not sure why they bothered doing a mystery partner when it's just going to be Chelsea Green. I think they should have just announced it in the first place rather than say, oh, hey, somebody interesting. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with Chelsea Green, but, I would I would not do a mystery partner angle if it's not going to be some big surprise or something we're not expecting. If it's just going to be somebody on the roster, then why even bother with the mystery partner angle? I don't know. So we had this tag match, and Io Shirai accidentally knocked Rhea Ripley off the apron, and Charlotte rolled up Io, put her feet on the ropes for leverage because that's what a Flair does, and Charlotte picked up the win here. So I guess the idea was to tease some dissension between Rhea Ripley and Io Shirai. This was fine. Nick Glavin with a $2.79 super chat says, Charlotte is on Raw, SmackDown, and NXT is way too much. I do agree with you, actually. When Charlotte came out, I have to say, like, even though I liked the match on Raw, like, Charlotte can have good matches. The match with Bayley was good, too. I'm just seeing too much of her. I 100% agree with you, Nick. When Charlotte came out, I'm like, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this act right now. I'm going to focus on AEW. Just saying, I definitely think they're overbooking Charlotte on TV, and they're doing too much with her. She's not Steve Austin, you know? She's not this big draw that you can milk every little drop of drawing power out of her because, well, as good as she is, she's not moving numbers. Certainly is not moving numbers on NXT. We had Candice LeRae interviewed about what happened with Keith Lee and Mia Yim, making fun of them. Of course, Candice and Johnny were not very amused. They're the only true power couple. Johnny vowed to take the North American Championship at TakeOver against Keith Lee, and then Candice said she's going to take care of Mia Yim on next week's edition of NXT. So I guess they're not doing the mixed tag team match. They're going to go with Gargano and Keith Lee for the North American title. Maybe we'll get the mixed tag team match sometime down the line. Tom McCarthy with a $2 super chat says, bring back the no DQ lotion. It had its run. But there might be something else I'm bringing back. Stay tuned. Stay tuned for the next no DQ video. I'll have an announcement for you guys. Next segment we had was Adam Cole and William Regal with their negotiations. Adam Cole basically had a few demands. He said, number one, he wants the Undisputed Era to have a fair shot at the tag team titles. William Regal was willing to do this. However, Regal brought up the idea of Velveteen Dream getting another opportunity at Adam Cole. Cole said that he will agree to this on one condition. Cole said that after he beats Dream at In Your House, Dream will never get another opportunity at the AEW or NXT title, as long as Cole is the champion. Regal agreed to this and then said that he will be determining a location that is fitting for both competitors. So I guess we're getting a cinematic style match with these guys. I'm guessing it'll be more similar to what Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa did, although maybe not. Maybe with Velveteen Dream they're going to go over the top with this and do some kind of wacky cinematic match. We had Ciampa in a squash match. Scarlett was out there at ringside. Ciampa picked up a pretty quick win, although the opponent did get a roll-up due to the distraction from Scarlett. Killer Cross, or Karrion Kross, appeared on the big screen after the match and said that Ciampa is special. However, he is going to make Ciampa feel something that he has never felt before. Tick-tock. Little promo here. This was fine. No complaints. I'm saying that a lot about NXT. Like, it's fine. There really wasn't all that much that blew me away on this show. Like, it was fine. It was a fine edition of NXT. The main event, though, was pretty interesting. I will say that. So we had this cage fight between Tim Thatcher and Matt Riddle, with Kurt Angle as the special guest referee for this fight. Very UFC-like. They had this cage with a scaffold surrounding the four sides, looking like the octagon, but it was shaped like a ring. And during this fight, Riddle went to town early and knocked out a few teeth of Timothy Thatcher. Although maybe he really did knock out his teeth. I didn't even get a good look at it, but they showed a couple of teeth on the ground, and he was bleeding. And Thatcher refused to give up. The doctor was out there checking on him, and he's like, I want to keep fighting. So the match continued. After the commercial break, they kept going at it. Again, very MMA, UFC style, with a lot of wrestling, a lot of takedowns, that sort of thing. Then they started fighting on top of the scaffold. Thatcher got knocked off the scaffold, and then Riddle, this was more of a pro wrestling thing, doing this twisted moonsault off the top of the scaffold onto Thatcher. However, this was not the end of the match. Riddle ended up getting knocked into the cage, and Thatcher went for this sleeper hold on Riddle. Riddle tried to break out of it. He backed Thatcher into the corner, into the cage several times, could not break the sleeper hold. Riddle fell onto the mat. Thatcher kept the hold on, and Kurt Angle held up Riddle's hand. 1, 2, 3. Match was called off. Riddle could not continue. Thatcher was your winner, defeating Matt Riddle in this cage fight after getting his teeth knocked out, after getting hit with that move from the top. Really strong showing here for Thatcher, making him look like $1 million. And if you believe the rumors, this was the swan song for Matt Riddle. He is apparently getting called up to the main roster, which I like. I've said this before. I think it's time to call up some new people to the main roster. Although I still think Gargano and Ciampa are the top two on my list. Riddle's been around a couple of years. The thing that disappoints me the most is that this could be the end of Riddle and Pete Dunne. I was really enjoying them as a tag team. But that looks to be the end for now. Maybe one day Pete Dunne comes up to the main roster, although I'm not holding my breath on that one, just because I don't know if he'll be utilized strongly. But that would be cool to see them reunited. If this is the end for them, I'm going to be pretty sad. So overall, like I said, fine NXT. You had some interesting stuff. The cage fight was probably the most interesting thing on the show. AEW was interesting as well. Both shows had a lot going for them. Looking forward to TakeOver. Looking forward to the follow-up with the TNT title and Mike Tyson and Jericho. So both shows thumbs up, but that's pretty much how it is every week. Thank you guys for tuning in to the live streams. I appreciate the continued viewership and support. I'll be back with Team No DQ tomorrow night for the No DQ review. I'm sure we'll be talking about this more, discussing everything that happened on these shows. Take care, everybody. Be safe. Stay positive. And I'll see you all next time.